Chapter 16. The Cost of Loyalty. The portal flared open in the workshop's medical bay, its blue light washing over faces tight with worry. Eli was waiting, she always was when Gunnar came back broken. But this time her expression shifted the moment she saw the stretchers coming through. Gunnar unconscious, his face pale as parchment. Alpha's massive form limp and still, his silver fur matted with blood. "Jesus," she breathed. Behind them came Aeliana, her armor cracked, power still flickering faintly around her hands. She looked like she'd been through hell and dragged someone back with her. "Eli," Aeliana said, her voice hoarse but commanding, "I have Gunnar. Please, see to Alpha." Jewel was already barking orders to the medical team. "Trauma 1 for the Alpha, Trauma 2 for Gunnar. Move!" But Aeliana caught the lead surgeon's arm as they started to separate the stretchers. "Keep them close," she said. "Same room if possible." Dr. Martinez frowned. "Ma'am, we have better surgical suites if we—" "Same room," Aeliana repeated, her eyes blazing with exhausted authority. "You don't understand their bond. It's not just emotional, it's spiritual. If one dies, the other may follow." The doctor started to object again, but something in Aeliana's expression stopped him cold. The raw power still crackling faintly around her, the absolute certainty in her voice. "Same room," he agreed. The workshop was in full military lockdown. CSM Holt stood at the main checkpoint, his weathered face grim as he coordinated with Elven sentries and Echo Division tactical teams. Humans and elves moved with practiced efficiency, weapons ready, every entrance secured. Desera emerged from the command center, her sniper rifle slung across her back. "Status?" "Both critical, but stable," Jewel called as they rushed towards surgery. "Gunnar's got internal bleeding from an enchanted blade. Alpha ... She paused. "Alpha's worse." Ashley appeared from the armory, Bianca right behind her, both in full tactical gear. The base hummed with controlled tension. Everyone armed, everyone ready. As the surgical doors began to close, Aeliana placed her hand on the glass window that would let her watch both operating tables. "Stay with each other," she whispered. "Don't you dare leave him behind." Through the reinforced glass, man and wolf lay side by side, their greatest strength and their greatest vulnerability laid bare under surgical lights. Chapter 17. Ashes and Answers. The fires still smouldered as Clara walked the upper rampart, boots crunching over shattered stone and broken steel. The castle smelled of blood, sulphur, and regret. Echo Division soldiers swept every hallway in pairs, weapons up, wolves at their sides. Elven scouts took the high ground, their eyes sharp, magic pulsing in the air like a net. But Syrien was gone. And so was the wolf. "West Tower's clear," a sergeant reported, sweat and soot streaking his face. "No bodies. No signs of portal use." Clara gave a tight nod. "Double back. Make sure it stays clear." She kept her expression cold, her pace steady, but inside something twisted. Twice now. Twice Gunnar had bled out on this cursed ground. Down in the courtyard, Eli knelt over the corpse of one of the dark priests, her gloved fingers carefully pulling apart the blood-stained robes. The body was a mess, bones twisted by shadow magic, flesh branded with Ultranacious' sigils. She flinched slightly as she peeled away the fabric from the chest and uncovered a thin chain tangled around the ribs. 3 medallions hung there, tarnished, cracked, familiar. Her breath caught. She pulled them free. "Darren," she said quietly, holding them up as he walked over. He didn't answer at first. He stood there looking down at the priest's broken body, the blood, the talismans. Then he reached for them, took them in his hand, and his jaw locked. A few yards away, among a collapsed archway, something caught the light. A long barrel, twisted metal, runes faded. Darren walked over and froze. Starbreaker lay in pieces, crushed against the stone, its frame bent beyond use. The trigger mechanism was cracked, the energy chamber split open, its core bleeding flickers of dying enchantment. He stared at it for a long time. Then he dropped to one knee and started picking up every piece with shaking hands, every bolt, every shard, every scrap. He held them like they mattered more than his own blood. Because they did. Eli stepped forward carefully, talismans still in her hand. Darren. He didn't look up. He didn't wait, Darren muttered. Goddamn idiot didn't wait. Darren, why does he always do this? His voice cracked. Every time. Every goddamn time. Charging in like he's the only one who can take the hit. He stood up suddenly, fists clenched around Starbreaker's ruined core. Is he trying to get himself killed? He snapped. Is that it? Is this his plan now? Go out swinging while the rest of us just watch it happen? His voice bounced off the stone, sharp and bitter. Eli didn't answer right away, because she felt the same thing. Because she wanted to yell too. But she just stepped closer, setting the talismans gently on a fallen banner nearby. He didn't want you hurt, she said softly. Darren laughed, sharp and bitter. Yeah, well, guess what? We're hurt anyway. His eyes found hers. They weren't angry anymore. They were broken. I fix things, Eli. That's what I do. I patch. I weld. I stitch. I rebuild. I hold the fucking line. But I can't fix him when he does this. Eli's voice was barely a whisper. You're not supposed to. They stood there, surrounded by bodies and ruin, and silence, until Clara's voice cut through it. You done? They turned. She walked toward them in full tactical gear, her rifle slung, blood staining the side of her collar. Omega flanked her, his steps silent, his golden eyes watching both of them. Clara stopped, looked at the pieces in Darren's hand, then at the talismans on the cloth. Then at them. Her voice was calm, steel wrapped in velvet. I know you're angry. I am too. She knelt and picked up one of the medallions, letting it spin in her fingers. But this isn't where we break, this is where we tighten. Eli crossed her arms, trying not to shake. He could have died, Clara nodded. And if he had, it would have been for us. Same as always. Darren looked down at Starbreaker again. His knuckles were white. Clara stepped closer, her tone firm now. Both of you listen to me. We don't get to fall apart. Not here. Not yet. Gunner's alive. Alpha's alive. That's not luck, that's because of you. All of you. You held the line until we could get them out. That matters. Darren's shoulders slumped. Eli looked away. Clara reached out and rested a hand on Darren's arm. Not soft, not comforting. Grounding. You feel it because you give a damn, she said. So feel it. But then stand back up. She looked to both of them. Because when he wakes up, we're going to need a plan. A beat. Darren exhaled. Eli finally nodded. Clara straightened, turned to leave, but paused after a few steps and glanced back. Oh, and bring Starbreaker to the forge room. If anyone can fix it. Her eyes met Eli's. It's you. Then she was gone. Darren stared at the rifle parts in his hands. God damn her, he muttered. She's getting good at this. Eli gave the faintest smile. Scary, isn't it? And together they gathered what was broken and started walking toward what came next. The bodies were being hauled out in rows now, draped in Echo Division tarps or wrapped in silence. Engineers had set up floodlights around the broken courtyard, casting harsh shadows over shattered pillars and blood-stained banners. Clara didn't stop to count the dead. She already knew the numbers. She stood at the base of the crumbled stairwell, Omega sitting beside her like a sentinel carved from smoke and moonlight. His silver fur was stained in streaks of ash and dried blood, but his head was high, ears forward, eyes on her. Always on her. She didn't speak at first. She just held the talismans in her palm, Lysandra's, Valara's, and Nezra's. The silver was cracked, the cords frayed, symbols of a bond that had failed them when it mattered most. She turned them over slowly, one by one. They don't deserve him, she murmured. Omega let out a low chuff, tail flicking once. Number, I'm not letting this happen again. She clenched the talisman's tight, knuckles white. I watched him bleed out on these stones once before. I carried his body through that portal. I heard his heartbeat slowing under my hands. Her voice dropped, and then he came back. She looked up at the stars, the ruined sky above the crumbling towers. Her voice was low, but each word landed like a strike. He earned his rest. He earned the right to fight only when he chooses. Not when they call, not when they fail. Omega shifted beside her, muzzle bumping gently against her thigh. He knew. He felt it too. Clara dropped to a knee, resting her forehead against his. They tried to lead. They tried to rule. And they failed. So now... She stood again, talismans glinting in her fist. Now the Alpha leads. Her eyes burned, not with tears, but with rage barely held in check. She turned her gaze north toward the tree line where Syrien had vanished like a shadow retreating from the light. "You hear me, you pale witch?" she muttered under her breath. "You and that twisted thing wearing a wolf's skin? I'm coming for you." Her jaw flexed. Her voice dropped to a growl. "You don't get to hurt my family and vanish into the dark. You don't get to brand this ground with his blood and laugh. I will find you." She started up the steps toward the keep. Her gait was steady, her shoulders squared, the full weight of command settling on them like armor. "But first," she muttered, "we're going to have a little conversation about thrones, crowns, and cowardice." Omega followed close behind, silent and watchful. Ahead, the broken doors of the throne hall loomed. The sisters were waiting inside. And Clara? Clara was done waiting. The female alpha had arrived. Chapter 18. The Broken Crown. The portal shimmered like a dying star, its light weak, flickering, half-woven. Syrien staggered through it. Her boot caught the edge of the frame, and she fell, hard, onto black stone slick with condensation. Sorvin collapsed beside her, his massive form writhing in a broken spiral of shadow and whimpers. His wounds pulsed with wild magic, unstable and toxic. His breathing was shallow, erratic. The portal snapped shut behind them. Gone. And, for a long moment, silence. Not even the madness spoke. Syrien stared at the stone ceiling above her, one arm twisted beneath her, her back arching in pain. Her lip was split, her ribs cracked. Blood pooled beneath her. She blinked slowly. "He cut me," she whispered. "He cut me." No voice answered. No whisper in her ear. No presence curling behind her spine. Nothing. She turned to Sorvin, reaching out weakly. His body was flickering between spectral and flesh, his essence unraveling in pulses. "No, no, no," she murmured, dragging herself to him. "Don't leave me. You don't get to... You're mine. You're..." Her voice broke. The dark realm around them was quiet. Cold. Silent stone arches stretched overhead, carved with runes older than language. The bones of an ancient fortress, one of her own, long forgotten. A pair of cloaked figures appeared at the edge of the chamber. Then more, Black Dawn priests, hooded, silent, cautious. Then came the traitor. He stepped from the shadows, gloved hands folded behind his back. He moved with precision, his cloak trailing over the stone like water. He stopped just a few feet from Syrien's crumpled form and tilted his head. "Well," he said lightly, "you look like shit." No answer. He circled them, her sprawled and trembling, the wolf barely holding form, one eye half shut, cracks in the soul stuff that made him. "Fascinating," the traitor murmured. "She burns too hot, but now there's no fire." He crouched beside Syrien, watching her shiver. Her eyes fluttered open. She saw him, a rasp. "You're late?" The traitor smiled faintly. "You're ruined." He reached out and brushed blood from her forehead with 2 fingers. He stared at it, almost in awe. "I've seen gods fall, Syrien. But this?" He looked down at her. I've never seen the essence unravel like this. Not from you, not from the wolf. He touched her chest lightly over her heart. His expression shifted, cold, analytical. It's gone, he said it softly, almost reverently. The echo of Ultranacious, the tether. He looked at Sorvin next, brow furrowing. You severed it, somehow. He doesn't speak to you anymore. Syrien didn't move, didn't answer. Her lips parted, no words came. The traitor stood slowly. I should leave you here, he said. Let the madness devour what's left. A pause. But... He looked back at the portal ring, its frame still glowing faintly where she forced it open. A broken spell, a desperate surge, a scream in the void. Whatever did this to you? I want to meet it. He gestured sharply. Bind the wolf. Stabilize her. Use the old chamber. No void stone. She's too unstable. And I want every detail scanned from her blood. We're going to study our little goddess of ruin. Very carefully. The priests moved quickly, cautiously. As they lifted Syrien's limp form onto a gurney of shadow steel, the traitor leaned close to her ear. I need you alive now, Syrien. Not because I believe in you. Not because I fear you. He smiled, but because you're the only piece left on the board with teeth. And as they carried her away into the dark halls, he watched the trail of glowing blood she left behind, and began to plan. Chapter 19, The Alpha's Judgment. The throne room of Atherin still stank of blood. The banners had been torn down during the siege, half hung again by trembling hands. The light through the high, stained glass windows painted soft colours across a floor still slick with the dead. And at the top of the dais the 3 thrones stood, equal in height, symbols of unity. But there was no unity here, only tension. Lysandra stood at the centre, her wrist freshly bandaged. Valara stood to her right, silent, eyes bruised and shadowed. Nezra stood stiffly to the left, jaw clenched, arms crossed. They weren't queens now. They were survivors. And they flinched when the doors boomed open. Clara strode through like a storm wrapped in command. Her armour was streaked with dried blood, her boots echoing off the stone. Omega padded beside her, ears back, gaze locked forward. He didn't growl. He didn't need to. Clara held something in her gloved hand. 3 talismans, burned, cracked, singed with blood. She didn't stop until she reached the bottom of the dais. Didn't bow, didn't blink, just held the talismans up in her fist, eyes locked on Lysandra. These belong to warriors. Her voice was calm, controlled, and ice-cold. They were forged by Gunnar and Eli, designed to be attuned, personal. You had to earn them. She let the silence stretch. Funny thing, she continued, I found them on the corpse of a dark priest, bound together, stripped from you in defeat. You didn't even die holding them. Nezra stiffened. You don't get to judge us. I do now, Clara cut in, voice snapping like a whip. Because Gunnar's in surgery and I'm the one left standing. Omega growled. Just once. It was enough to silence the room. Clara stepped forward, one slow boot at a time. She reached the base of the dais and then tossed the talismans up onto the steps. They clattered like bones. You want your medallions back? Earn them. Lysandra's eyes flashed. We never abandoned the fight. No, Clara said. You just let it come to your gates. You let the people you swore to protect bleed first, and you waited for the pack to come save your realm, again. Valara spoke for the first time. You think we didn't suffer? You think we weren't willing to die? Not the point, Clara snapped. The point is, you weren't ready. You led with hesitation, not unity. And your enemy knew it. Syrien didn't beat you with magic, she beat you with doubt. She looked between them. From now on, if you want to be part of this alliance, then you follow my lead. Not because I'm stronger, not because I'm smarter. Her voice dropped. But because I don't hesitate. A pause. She let that sink in. You want to wear the crowns? fine. But from this point forward, I'm the alpha. I don't kneel to thrones. I stand for the pack, for Earth, for every soldier who followed Gunnar into fire while you debated. She turned, ready to leave, then paused. One more thing. She faced them again. This time, the voice wasn't cold. It was surgical. Where? The hell? Is the boy? The sisters froze. Lysandra's lips parted, but no words came. Clara stepped forward again, one pace, just one. We know about Syrian's child. We know he's real. You were raised by a monster. Don't pretend his legacy doesn't linger in this realm. Valara looked down. Nezra's eyes narrowed. Lysandra met Clara's gaze evenly, but there was something else in her stare now. Fear. We don't know where he is, she said, only that he exists. Clara nodded once, then turned and started walking away. You've got one chance to change that. As she reached the door, she paused beside Omega. They say queens rule from thrones, she said quietly, not looking back. But wolves, we rule from the ashes. And then she left. Behind her, the sisters stood in silence. Their thrones had never felt taller or colder. Clara's boots echoed as she turned and left the dais, the silence behind her dense with shame and defiance. She stalked through the hall, the talismans discarded behind her like snapped chains. At the far end, two figures approached. Eli, her violet eyes sharp behind soot-streaked lenses, and Darren, cradling something wrapped in black cloth. He slowed as Clara passed. She didn't stop walking, but her words hit sideways as she moved past him. You better get something useful out of them, because I'm done listening to silence. Darren gave her a half grin. Wouldn't dream of disappointing you, Alpha. She paused at that, eyes narrowing slightly. He raised one brow, that calm deflection in his tone. We all got our roles, right? You scare 'em straight. I talk 'em clean. For a second, it looked like Clara might say something sharp. Instead, she just gave a small, sharp nod and kept moving. Omega followed, her shadow, her spine. Inside the throne room. The sisters were still on the dais, the weight of Clara's presence lingering like smoke. Then Darren and Eli entered. Darren didn't storm in. He walked calmly, quiet, confident. He stepped to the base of the steps and slowly unwrapped the cloth in his hands. The starlight dagger, it gleamed faintly, still warm with power, still humming with the magic Gunnar had left in it. He looked at Lysandra, and for a moment no one spoke. Then he held it out. He gave this to you, Darren said, and I think he'd want you to have it back. Lysandra hesitated. Her fingers hovered over the hilt. Her voice cracked just slightly. He might not trust me now. Maybe not, Darren said softly. But he believed in you once. That kind of belief doesn't die easy. And, if he's going to keep bleeding for this realm, I need to know that belief meant something. She took the dagger, held it like it hurt. Now Darren's tone shifted, calm but surgical. You got lucky today. Clara's holding the line, but I need more than silence from you. I need facts. He looked between them all. Who is Syrien? What is she? And that wolf with her? It wasn't just a beast. What the hell is it? Eli stepped up beside him, arms folded. We felt the resonance. That thing was bound to something ancient, something that used to speak. But the bond is severed now. Whatever she was, she's less of it now. Valara finally spoke. She was once a priestess, a consort. Our father trusted her more than us. He whispered things to her we never heard, Nezra added bitterly. Lysandra looked up, voice tight. She was his shadow, the last piece of him none of us could touch. And the wolf. She paused. We don't know what it is, but I think it's tied to what was left of him. Sorvin isn't just her companion, it's his echo. Eli's eyes narrowed, like a spiritual fragment, twisted, weaponized. She called him her son, Darren muttered. Is that metaphor? Or… No, Valara said. She carried something after his death. A child. Rumors say she bore it in secret, that it grew in darkness. So the kid's real, Darren said, nodding slowly, then softer, and it's not Sorvin. Silence. Darren looked down at the dagger in Lysandra's hands. He bled for you. You owe him more than titles. He turned, Eli beside him, both of them done with diplomacy. You've got one chance to make this right, he said. Use it. They left the sisters to their silence. Outside, the wind howled across the broken stones of Atherin. Chapter 20. Sparks and Silence. The doors of the throne room thudded shut behind them. Outside, the cold wind cut across the courtyard like a blade, stirring ash and the smell of blood-soaked stone. Spotlights hummed overhead. Engineers were reinforcing the southern towers. Medics were still dragging out bodies, enemy and ally both. Darren didn't say anything at first, just walked, shoulders tight, hands jammed into his vest pockets like he needed to keep them from shaking. Eli matched his stride, silent. The command tent loomed ahead, a patchwork of canvas and rune-threaded fabric stretched between steel supports. It rose like a heart inside the battlefield, pulsing with motion. Screens, comms, sigils, soldiers, the war effort alive and beating, but for a moment it felt far away. Eli glanced sideways at him as they walked. You did good in there, she said. Darren gave a half snort. Didn't throw a punch, didn't call anyone names. Practically heroic, huh? You got them talking, she said. I got them remembering, he corrected. Not the same thing. They stepped through the flap of the command tent. The interior buzzed with organized chaos. Maps, digital projections, magical overlay grids showing ley line activity and possible troop movements. No one noticed them at first, which was fine. They headed toward the far corner, quiet, tucked between a munitions crate and a table of comm runes. Eli leaned against the edge of the crate and pulled her gloves off slowly, staring at the runes flickering across the warboard. Darren sat, hands on knees, quiet. A long beat passed. Then he spoke, quietly, not looking at her. You ever think about what happens if he doesn't get up? Eli didn't flinch, but her hands froze halfway to her belt pouch. He looked up at her, and this time there was no grin, no sarcasm. I mean it. If Gunnar doesn't come out of that room, or if Alpha doesn't make it… He trailed off. Eli met his eyes. Yeah, she said softly. I think about it. Another beat. You angry at him? She asked. Angry? Darren let out a bitter laugh. Eli, I want to hit him so bad it makes my hands twitch, but if I did, he'd just thank me for knocking sense into him and then go right back to bleeding for people. So, yes, she said dryly. Oh, yeah, he muttered. They sat in silence. Outside, someone yelled for more stretchers. The wind rattled the canvas. You think they'll listen to Clara? Eli asked, still watching the warboard. They'd be dumb not to, Darren said. She's the only one in this whole damn realm who's acting like a commander. She didn't like you giving that dagger back. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Darren shrugged. I didn't do it for her. I did it for him. Eli looked at him sharply. You think she's going to have to make the call? He didn't answer. Didn't have to. They both knew what the call meant. If Gunnar didn't get up, if Alpha didn't make it, if the pack's spine broke, Clara would be the one to hold it together, or bury it. You think we'll survive this? Eli asked. Darren leaned back in his chair, eyes closing for a long moment. Then he opened one eye, looked at her and smiled, tired but real. You're the only one here who can make tech dance and reality blink. I'm the guy who fixes broken toys and doesn't know when to quit. So? So yeah, he said. We'll survive. Another long silence. Then he leaned forward again, his voice lower. But if Syrien shows her face again… Eli's eyes met his. We finish it, she said, together. They shook once, no words needed. Then the command board flared with a new alert. War Council convening in 5 minutes, the Coemem's officer called. Clara wants senior Echo operatives in place. All divisions report. Darren stood up and cracked his knuckles. Guess the Alpha's ready to speak. Eli slid her gloves back on. Good, so am I. And together they walked back into the fire. Chapter 21. The War Council. The command tent had been expanded. Now it rose like a fortress in the middle of Atherin's ravaged courtyard, reinforced with enchanted support struts, walls layered with frost wards, perimeter sealed by a blend of Echo Division tech and Elven Watch sigils. Inside, the heat from arcane braziers pushed back the cold, but couldn't chase away the tension in the air. The war table dominated the centre, projectors flickered with ley line data, troop movements and maps of the fractured north. Chairs had been added, none of them thrones, just chairs. Equal height. Neutral ground. Clara stood at the head of the table, no longer pacing. This was her war now. On one side sat Eli, Bianca, Darren, Desera, and Ashley, each in their gear, each silent but alert. A few elven officers stood behind them, watching, not interfering. They knew this wasn't their meeting. On the other side sat the Atherin generals, shell-shocked, grimy, silent. Then the tent flap parted, and the triumvirate sisters entered. All three wore the same battered clothes from the battle. Their crowns were gone, their expressions were sombre. No attendants, no guards. Lysandra walked in first, holding the starlight dagger in a fresh leather sheath. Valara followed, hands folded calmly. Nezra came last, armour still flecked with dried blood. The room stilled. Clara didn't say a word. She didn't have to. The sisters approached the table and didn't take seats. Instead, Lysandra stepped forward, slowly drawing the dagger and placing it on the war table. Carefully, quietly, between them. Then she looked to Clara. "Thank you," she said simply. Clara's jaw tensed. "For what?" Lysandra met her eyes. "For saving our people, for not giving up, and for speaking truth when we didn't want to hear it." She paused. "We failed. There's no excuse, but we want to do better, and we brought what we could." She motioned slightly, and Valara stepped forward, setting a crystal orb on the table. It flared with pulsing light, recorded visions, scattered magical echoes from before and during Syrien's arrival. Memories from the court, fragments of Syrien's rituals, the chants her followers used to open hidden gates in the north, Valara said. Nezra pulled a folded map from her belt and spread it across the table. The terrain was marked in red and black, detailed and brutal. "These are the last known routes taken by the Black Dawn before they went underground," she said. "We know at least 3 strongholds still exist. One near the Frostwood Barrens, one under the ruins of Sereth's Cross, and one that disappeared entirely. Nothing but ley line interference left behind." Darren stepped forward, tapping the map with a gloved finger. "That last one might be where she's hiding. We tracked her portal signature, unstable, erratic, but it dipped below ley line sight for a few seconds before vanishing. That's a blackout zone." "Which means a cloaked stronghold," Eli added. "Deep magic, probably pre-Concordia architecture. We'll need time to decode the signal echoes." Clara folded her arms. "How long?" 12 hours minimum, Eli said. 6 if I skip sleep." "Skip sleep," Clara said without hesitation. Eli nodded. Across the table, Valara watched carefully. "We don't ask forgiveness," she said. "We ask permission to stand with you, to fix what we allowed to rot." "You want to help?" Clara said, voice sharp. "Then understand something." She stepped around the table, boots heavy on the stone floor. "Echo Division doesn't wait for royal approval. The pack doesn't kneel to ancient bloodlines. And Gunnar didn't bleed out so you could keep playing politics in broken towers." She stopped in front of them. "You're not above us anymore." Lysandra nodded. "We know." "Good," Clara said. "Then take a seat." It wasn't a suggestion. The sisters did. And just like that, the War Council was no longer a formality, it was a battlefield of its own. Clara looks at. Clara didn't sit. Instead, she turned her eyes to the war map, then to the two lieutenants standing off to the side. One human, one elven. Both had been watching in silence since the meeting began. Lieutenant Vargas, Lieutenant Thorell. They both straightened instantly. Each of you will supply 4 soldiers, Clara said. Combat ready, magic capable, quiet movers. She let the command hang for half a breath. They'll form the foundation of a recon strike team. She turned slowly, her gaze falling back on the sisters, measured, unflinching. You're going to match that number. 10 troops, no pageantry, no political favourites. I want your best. Lysandra opened her mouth to speak, but Clara didn't let her. You don't get a vote. Nezra's jaw tightened. Valara said nothing. These 18 will deploy within the hour, Clara continued. They'll split into 3 squads and scout each of the target zones you provided. She pointed to the red circles on the map. Frostwood Barrens, Sereth's Cross, and the Blackout Zone. Objectives are simple. No contact, no engagement. Their eyes only. I want movement patterns, magical pulses, terrain conditions, and anything that even smells like resurrection cult behaviour. They report back every 2 hours. If a team goes dark, we send in the heavies. She turned to Eli and Darren. I want you two coordinating relay beacons and comm stabilization. Bianca will fly Overwatch. Eli nodded instantly. Darren gave a mock salute. Already on it, Alpha. Across the table, Lieutenant Vargas and Thorell shared a look, then turned and strode out to collect their teams. Lysandra finally stood and gave a sharp nod to one of her waiting aides, who ducked out of the tent to begin assembling their 10. Clara leaned on the edge of the table now, staring down at the dagger Lysandra had returned earlier. We do this fast, we do it quiet, and we do it together, or we lose everything. The War Council said nothing, but the silence felt aligned. Not peace, not yet, but unity. It was starting to form. Chapter 22. The Echo Across Realms. In the high spire of the Guardian Council's sanctum, the world was quiet. Maelorion sat alone in the inner chamber, circular, stone-forged, and lined with windows that opened to the pale blue sky of Alfheim. Runes glowed faintly beneath him, arranged in ancient patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was still. The winds did not dare stir here unless called. He sat cross-legged, hands resting gently on his knees, eyes closed. In meditation, time moved differently. He did not hear the bells of the cities below. He did not hear the wind in the trees, but he felt something wrong, like a thread pulled too tight across the weave of fate. Like breath caught in the throat of the world. The bond had broken. He inhaled sharply but kept his eyes closed. No. The sensation burned through his chest, not physical pain but spiritual imbalance. A tether that had held firm for years had snapped somewhere beyond the veil. Gunnar. And the wolf, still alive. But something was gone. He didn't need words, didn't need visions. He had warned the council once before. If the balance of Earth is ever shattered, we may not see it in time, but we will feel the consequences. He opened his eyes just as the chamber doors burst open. A junior guardian rushed in, breathless. Maelorion, she gasped. A message from the Earthward Spire. It's confirmed. Echo Division is wounded. The Wolf of Earth has fallen. A pause. The messenger hesitated. They say he may not rise. Maelorion stood slowly, his face unreadable. For a moment he said nothing, only turned his gaze to the window beyond, to the swirling ley-line convergence in the far sky. Alfheim pulsed with clarity, but Earth was now dimmed in the weave. Then it has begun, he said softly. Summon the other councillors, he continued, voice sharp now. We are no longer observers. We are participants. He turned to the messenger. And ready the portal. I go to Earth. The messenger blinked. You're going personally? Yes. But what do we tell the others? Maelorion stepped toward the door, his cloak already coalescing around him like mist drawn to power. Tell them the wolf has fallen, and the storm is coming. Chapter 23. Breath Between Worlds. The medical bay's inner corridor pulsed with too much light. Runes flickered along the reinforced glass, reacting to the chaos on the other side. Monitors spiked. Warning glyphs screamed silently. The surgical team inside worked with the precision of soldiers, but even they were starting to shake. Outside the OR, Aeliana knelt in silence. Her cloak had been stripped away. Her hair hung damp with sweat. The staff of light rested across her lap, its runes dim, flickering as if gasping for breath. She hadn't moved in over an hour. Ashley stood nearby, arms crossed tight across her chest, eyes never leaving the window. Desera paced back and forth, the heel of her prosthetic clunking in rhythmic panic, the only sound breaking the sterile quiet. Inside the operating room, Gunnar lay still. His chest barely moved. Alpha was sprawled beside him on a secondary table, barely breathing, tubes and sigils wrapped around his massive ribcage, like a harness holding together a dying star. "His pulse is dropping," a voice shouted from inside. Ashley stepped forward, one hand on the glass. "They're fading," Desera muttered. "Damn it, they're fading." Inside, the monitors flatlined. First one, then the other. Two piercing tones joined together in a brutal harmony of loss. Ashley's fists slammed against the glass. Number. "Don't you do this, you stubborn son of a—" Aeliana's eyes snapped open. She didn't gasp. She didn't scream. She simply knew. Something primal tore through her magic-starved core. A sense of wrongness. Absence. Like the universe had suddenly blinked. She pushed herself upright, legs trembling. Her staff hit the ground with a metallic crack that silenced the room. Ashley turned. "Aeliana." "They're not done," Aeliana whispered. "You can't—" Desera stepped forward. "You're tapped. You'll die." "Then I die," Aeliana said, already stepping toward the door. Her knees buckled. Ashley caught her by the elbow. Desera moved under the other side, steadying her. "You're not strong enough," Desera said, voice tight. "I don't need to be strong," Aeliana whispered. "I just need to be theirs." The surgical team startled as the door slammed open. Aeliana walked in. Barely. Her feet dragged, her light flickered. Her skin had gone ghost pale, but in her hand the staff of light blazed to life. Runes ignited across the ceiling, the walls shuddered with pressure, even the glyph wards flared and recoiled, recognizing something beyond Guardian protocol. This was sacrifice. She moved between the tables, between man and wolf, her hands shaking as she lifted the staff. "Come back," she whispered. "Come home." The staff flared. Golden fire exploded outward, flooding the room with radiant energy. It wasn't just healing, it was restoration. Magic that burned through time, that seared through threads of fate already cut. Her voice broke into fractured prayer, elven and earth tongue layered together, as light poured from her chest. Her skin cracked with it, her veins glowed. Alpha twitched, then Gunnar. Monitors sparked to life again, one, then the other. Two pulses, faint but present. Aeliana didn't smile. She collapsed. Desera and Ashley surged in, catching her just before she hit the floor. Her eyes rolled back, blood trickled from her nose. The staff clattered beside her, its light gone completely. "Get her out!" the lead medic shouted. Ashley lifted her without hesitation, Desera guiding the limp form through the doorway. Aeliana never stirred. Outside the OR. They laid her on a recovery bed, medics immediately moving to stabilize her. Ashley hovered protectively, her usually stoic expression shattered with panic. Desera paced like a caged animal, her jaw clenched, voice ragged. She saved them. She did it. "Goddamn idiot!" The door behind them opened again. Inside, Gunnar stirred. Alpha groaned low, a sound halfway between pain and recognition. The bond. Still flickering. Still there. Caleb appeared at the end of the hallway, eyes wide. "I felt it," he whispered. "What the hell did she just do?" Ashley didn't look away from Aeliana. She did what he would have done. A pause, then quieter. She chose them. The hallway was quiet again. Monitors beeped. Vitals returned. Magic steadied. But everything had changed. Aeliana had given everything, and bought Gunnar and Alpha one more chance to stand. Chapter 24. The Storm Begins. The portal inside the workshop's secure wing shimmered silently. No alarms, no flashes. Just a slow ripple through space and time as the ancient gateway activated. The runes around it pulsed not with magic, but with reverence. Maelorion stepped through. He wore no armor, no flowing robes, just a dark blue cloak threaded with silver and the quiet weight of centuries. His hair, braided simply, shimmered with faint strands of gold. His eyes, usually calm as still water, were distant, watching, calculating. A junior tech saw him and almost dropped her tablet. "Counselor!" "Take me to her," he said softly. No further explanation needed. The recovery wing. The door hissed open to the recovery bay. The room was quiet, lit only by ambient medical glow panels and warded runes still fading from overload. Aeliana lay motionless on the cot. Her skin was pale, cracked along her hands where light had burned from within. The staff of light lay nearby, dark, silent. Her breathing was shallow, controlled only by stabilizer magic and a healing matrix barely holding. Ashley sat beside her, eyes red. Desera leaned against the far wall, jaw locked. Neither moved. When Maelorion entered, both instinctively rose. Desera nodded. "She's stable. Barely." Ashley said nothing. Maelorion crossed to her side and knelt. He touched her forehead gently, and for a moment, nothing moved. Then he exhaled. Slow. Shaky. "Foolish girl," he whispered, barely audible. He placed one hand over her heart, the other over her temple, and then he gave. Not a full restoration. He couldn't risk collapsing her system, but a calming tether, a stabilizing anchor, a trick only those who'd trained with the Staff of Light could perform. Magic flowed gently through his fingers, silver instead of gold, like moonlight easing fire. Aeliana's breathing smoothed. The burns across her palms dulled. Her face relaxed. She didn't wake, but she stayed. Maelorion stands. He rose slowly. Ashley started to speak, but stopped when she saw his expression. He wasn't relieved. He looked aged. "Is she going to be okay?" Desera asked. Maelorion gave a small, kind smile. "She will live." A pause. Whether she should have done this is another question. Ashley frowned. She saved them. Gunnar and Alpha, she brought them back. "Yes," he said quietly. "She did." He turned back toward the bed. His gaze lingered. He saw not just her body, but the ripple in the weave of fate that now spiraled outward from this moment. He had hoped the prophecy was just ancient metaphor. He had prayed the Guardian would never break her oath for the wolf. But here it was. Undeniable. "You saw something," Desera said softly. Maelorion didn't look at her. "I saw the storm break its first chain." He turned, cloak whispering behind him. "And I felt the world hold its breath." Chapter 25. The Wolf and the Guardian. The surgical wing beyond the recovery bay had been quiet since the blast of light subsided. The air still smelled faintly of scorched ozone and burned magic. Biofoam units hummed quietly. Stabilization wards pulsed gently on the walls. Gunnar lay in bed, barely breathing. Tubes fed into his arm. His shirt had been cut away, revealing the cauterized wound across his ribs where the starlight dagger had pierced him. His cybernetic arm was dim, power levels drained to emergency mode. The skin across his chest bore the faint shimmer of runes, healing sigils applied in desperation and kept stable only by Aeliana's final surge. Beside him, Alpha lay still. The great dire wolf's fur was singed and torn, flanks rising slowly. His paws twitched from time to time, but otherwise he did not stir. Machines fed him low-level enchantment energy. The aura around him was dim but present, alive, just barely. Maelorion entered quietly. He moved between the two like a man entering a temple. For a long moment he stood in silence. He placed a hand on the edge of Gunnar's cot. "You weren't supposed to be the one who carried this weight," he said softly. "But you never asked who else would." He lifted his other hand, palm open, and whispered a phrase in Old Elvish. Gentle silver light glowed in his hand, pure guardian healing, channeled through compassion and conviction, not force. He placed it over Gunnar's chest. The runes along Gunnar's skin flickered, then brightened. His pulse strengthened. Maelorion did not flinch. "Rest, son of Earth," he whispered. "The world will need you again." A flicker. Gunnar's eye opened. Just one. Blurry, slow. He didn't move, didn't speak. But he saw him. "Maelorion," Gunnar rasped. The Elder Guardian smiled gently. "You're not done, Wolf." He rested a hand on Gunnar's shoulder, firm but kind. "But not yet. Heal. We'll speak in a few days, when your mind is sharp enough to ask me the questions I've waited years to answer." Gunnar blinked once, then slipped back into sleep, this time deeper. Safe. Maelorion turned to Alpha next. He paused when he saw him, really saw him. The breath caught in his throat, not from fear, from reverence. "Dire wolf," he murmured. "Last of your kind, born of fang and fate." Alpha's breathing was still slow, shallow. But the wolf stirred faintly at the sound of his voice. Maelorion stepped closer and knelt beside him. He reached out, not touching but hovering his palm just above Alpha's skull. "I thought your line extinguished in the fires of the Vale War. I never imagined one would remain, let alone bonded." He closed his eyes and focused. Another pulse of healing flowed, not as strong but targeted. Maelorion didn't just mend wounds. He calmed spirit. He reconnected what Syrien had tried to sever. And slowly, Alpha exhaled, deep, grounded. His breathing steadied, his paws flexed. He didn't wake, but his aura settled. Maelorion stayed there for a long time, hand still outstretched. A guardian before a forgotten legend. "You are the balance," he whispered. "And you are not alone." He stood at last, glanced between them, the warrior and the beast, one forged by war, the other by prophecy. Then he left them to rest, and outside the storm began to form. Chapter 26, Secrets of the Three. Desera met Maelorion just outside the recovery wing, her arms crossed over her chest, face tight with fatigue and frustration. The blood had been cleaned from her armor, but the expression in her eyes was the same as when Aeliana collapsed. Tired of watching people fall. Maelorion offered her a calm nod. "Your Alpha and his bondmate will live." Desera exhaled. "I figured that the second I saw you walk in. You never show up unless fate's kicking down a door." "It has." He paused. "I must return to Alfheim immediately. The council needs to hear what has happened." Desera raised a brow. "So we just wait around and hope for the best while the royals finish licking their wounds?" Maelorion smiled faintly, not dismissively, but with the kind of gentleness that came from seeing thousands of years of wars unfold the same way. "Number you hold the line. As always." He stepped closer. "Keep me informed. Everything concerning them. Gunnar, Alpha, Aeliana. I want reports sent to the Elven Spire every 12 hours. If anything changes, I will return before my breath cools." Desera nodded once. "Understood. I will only be gone a few days, but much can happen in a heartbeat now." He reached toward the portal pad and activated it, his sigil shimmering to life in pale blue light. "Thank you, Captain de Serra." Then he stepped through and was gone. Alfheim, high spire of the Guardians. The portal flared open in the stone platform overlooking the crystalline cliffs of the Guardian stronghold. Maelorion emerged without ceremony, cloak still dusted with earth ash, eyes already moving. 2 acolytes began to bow. He waved them off. "No interruptions. Secure the chamber." They vanished down the spiral corridor without hesitation. Maelorion ascended alone. The Chamber of 3. The inner sanctum sat high above the clouds, its walls carved from starlight marble, its floor inlaid with the runes of the world root. A space so sacred, no echoes dared live here. Only the 3, the senior councillors of the Guardian Order, were allowed to meet in this place. Not even the full council knew the chamber's location. It was older than most realms, built for one purpose: to speak prophecy. Maelorion stepped into the circle of light at its centre. He placed both palms on the crystalline basin at its heart and whispered, "By fate, by bond, by flame, I summon the 3. The basin rippled. 2 more figures shimmered into view. Vaelith, stoic, pale-skinned, her robes layered in midnight blue, the sigil of time burning faintly on her brow. Thandor, broader, golden-eyed, his right arm etched with celestial scars from a war never recorded in books. They appeared silently. Neither looked surprised to be called. Vaelith tilted her head. "You saw it." Maelorion nodded. "It has begun." Thandor's expression darkened. "The storm-bound prophecy." "Yes," Maelorion said. He closed his eyes. "Aeliana Vale has broken her oath, not in rebellion, but in love." "And the wolf?" Vaelith asked quietly. "He fell, but she pulled him back." A beat of silence stretched between them. Then Thandor spoke again. "Then the balance is no longer abstract. It's active, accelerating." Maelorion nodded once. "We have days, maybe weeks, but no longer seasons." Vaelith's fingers hovered over the edge of the basin. "And the child?" Maelorion's voice was quiet, still hidden. "But his existence is no longer speculation." He looked between them both. "We must prepare." "For what?" Thandor asked. "For choice," Maelorion said, "because when the next fracture comes, even we may not agree who is right." Chapter 27. The Law of Oaths. The grand hall of the Guardian Council gleamed with its usual sanctity. Sunlight filtered through crystal arches, casting spell-filtered warmth across the floor. Yet today it felt cold, unforgiving. The full Guardian Council had been summoned. 8 chairs encircled the centre of the chamber. 7 were filled. Only Maelorion stood. At the centre of the chamber, the sigil of the Guardian Order pulsed, balanced, unwavering, unlike the man speaking above it. Councillor Arian's voice was clipped and precise. "She broke the oath," Councillor Jin added, tone sharper still. "She used Guardian magic in a realm conflict, crossed domains without approval, engaged personally to save a mortal. This is not ambiguity, Maelorion. It is disobedience." Maelorion didn't move, didn't raise his voice. But when he spoke, the words carried weight forged over millennia. She saved the Alpha of Echo Division. She stabilized the Pack's bond. And in doing so, she preserved Earth's stability. Had Gunnar McKinnon died, I fear the consequences would have far exceeded our laws, Arian pressed, relentless. Then what precedent do we set? That love justifies the bending of sacred vows? That judgment without understanding weakens the order more than any enemy, Maelorion answered. The room stilled. He let silence follow that. Let them feel it. Aeliana Vale has been loyal to this order since her initiation. She's fought in the shadows of Everreach, held gates alone during the collapse of Varos. She has never once questioned the price. A pause. Until now, Councillor Aurelia frowned. And that doesn't concern you? Of course it does, he said quietly. But it also tells me something important. He looked around the table, his expression unreadable. It tells me she's still human enough to care. A few councillors shifted uncomfortably. She acted to preserve life, not dominate it. She didn't intervene for politics. She didn't seize power. She chose to save two souls who have held the line for Earth longer than anyone else alive. At the cost of her title, Jin said. At the cost of herself, Maelorion corrected. You weren't there. I was. I saw the cost. I saw her collapse from burning out every drop of her power. He let the words settle. Then he stepped back slightly from the centre. I am not asking you to absolve her. I am asking you to wait. Aeliana narrowed her eyes. To what end? To allow her recovery, to question her after she has healed, when she is not a shell of who she was. Thandor and Vaelith, silent until now, shared a glance across the chamber. It was subtle, but Maelorion saw it. They too understood. They too were carrying the same secret. The stormbound prophecy was no longer a possibility. It had begun. You will have your answers, Maelorion said softly, but let them come when she can give them freely. And until then? Aryan asked. She remains under watch. I will take full responsibility for her actions and her condition. She will answer to me. There was silence again. Then, one by one, the council nodded. Some reluctantly, others respectfully, but none with full trust. Maelorion bowed his head slightly, concealing the storm behind his calm. Because only he and the other two knew. Aeliana's act had not just broken an oath, it had broken the seal on the future. Chapter 28. The Stormbound Scroll. The air inside the Guardian Council chamber felt thicker than usual. The temperature hadn't changed. The light hadn't dimmed. And yet, something ancient now lingered beneath every breath. Maelorion stood in the centre once again, but this time he wasn't alone. Vaelith and Thandor had stepped down from their chairs. Together the three stood shoulder to shoulder in the circle, an act not performed in nearly 2 centuries. It was Vaelith who spoke first. There is more to this than Aeliana's oath. The other councillors turned, frowning. What are you implying? Aeliana asked. If this is about justification, we've already... This is not justification, Thandor interrupted, his deep voice calm but absolute. It is confession. A silence rippled through the hall. Maelorion raised a hand, and with it summoned forth a scroll, long, silver-threaded, preserved with magic older than the council itself. It hovered in the air, unfurling above the basin of light. Its script danced with ancient runes, some Alfheimian, some darker, unsettling, familiar only to a chosen few. This, Maelorion said quietly, is the stormbound prophecy. Gasps echoed across the chamber. Councillor Jin stood abruptly. That's a myth, a distortion. The verses were deemed apocryphal after the Everreach Accord. Because we chose to hide them, Vaelith said. Because we feared what they might mean, Thandor added. Maelorion nodded solemnly. And now the signs have begun to manifest. He raised his voice just slightly, not dramatic, but enough to still the objections. The scroll of Alfheim and the lost verse of Umbral both tell of a bond between two, one marked by storm, one by starlight, a guardian and a wolf, a bond not merely of duty, but of love. The verses began to project in glowing script above the chamber, words drifting through the air like mist. Their paths diverge across the veil, steel and starlight held apart, but if they join beneath the pale, their union births the balance's heart. Councillor Aurelia stood slowly, disbelief on her face. You're saying, Gunnar and Aeliana are the wolf and guardian foretold, Vaelith said. Yes. That their union is what shapes the future of all realms, Maelorion confirmed. Jin scoffed, even as his face paled. And this child? You believe it's literal? Thandor stepped forward. There are whispers already, factions moving, those who speak of Syrian's offspring with reverence or fear. The Black Dawn spoke of rebirth. This prophecy may explain their urgency, their belief. Maelorion nodded. And now Aeliana has broken the oath for the wolf. She gave all of herself to bring him back. The bond is no longer in theory. It is real. It has begun. The verses shifted again. Now the lost verse of Umbral appeared. The ward shall break, the storm shall fall, and realms shall tremble at love's call. Vaelith's voice dropped. The ward has broken. And the storm is coming, Maelorion said quietly. The council reacts. The room exploded into overlapping voices. This is madness! You hid this from us for how long? If she is the prophecy, then she must be contained. Or protected. We should have been told. Maelorion raises his voice. For the first time in an age, Maelorion raised his voice, and the chamber went still. Would you have treated her the same if you had known? Or would you have tried to cage her before she could choose her own path? Silence. We kept it secret because prophecy is not instruction. It is potential. It is our responsibility to watch, not to shackle. Until now. He stepped into the center again. His voice gentled. She is not a weapon. She is not a threat. She is a guardian. And she is still one of us. He turned, meeting each gaze in turn. We stand now on the edge of something greater than war, greater than allegiance. The balance of all realms may change, is changing, but our strength has always been in trust, in loyalty, in choice. A beat. So, let us choose now. Not fear, not chains, but faith. No one spoke. The prophecy hung glowing above them. And far away, beneath runes and whispered prayers, the wolf and guardian still slept, unaware of the storm now gathering in their name. Chapter 29. The Morning After Fire. The workshop's medical wing was still and dim, just before sunrise. Light crept gently through the reinforced windows, painting soft gold along the edges of the cot where Gunnar lay sleeping. His chest rose steady now. His colour had returned. Barely. A few monitoring glyphs still pulsed faintly on his skin, synced to the stabilizers humming quietly beneath the bed. Beside him sat Aeliana, wrapped in a thin blanket, her face pale but calmer than it had been in days. She didn't hold the staff of light. It sat across her lap, dark and inert, as if it too was resting. Her eyes were closed, head bowed in quiet meditation, or maybe just exhaustion. Then the machines chirped once, and Gunnar stirred. His brow twitched, his left hand flexed. He let out a low-pained breath. Eyes opened, just barely at first, then wider, and the first thing he saw was her. Aeliana lifted her head, blinking as if waking herself. Their eyes met. The world didn't shift, it just settled. Still alive? Gunnar rasped. Aeliana's lips curled upward, small, tired. Stubbornly so, she replied. Damn, he muttered. Was hoping this was the good kind of afterlife, the one with silence and no paperwork. No such realm exists, she said softly. Trust me, I've looked. A moment passed. Then she leaned forward just slightly. You idiot, she whispered, voice cracking. He blinked. What did I do this time? You charged in, gave yourself up, let her take the rifle, took the blade to the chest, again. She wasn't angry. She was shaking. You almost died. He looked at her more clearly now. Really looked. She was still pale. Her hands trembled. There was a scar beneath her right eye, new, faint burns around her fingers where the staff had overloaded. She looked like someone who'd walked through the sun just to pull him back from the dark. "You look like hell," he murmured. "I feel worse." "Why?" "Because I broke everything for you." A pause. He swallowed, slowly. "Aeliana." She didn't let him speak. "I used the staff. I burned out every drop of power I had. I walked into that OR knowing it might kill me. And I did it anyway." Her eyes locked onto his. "Because I couldn't lose you." "You broke your oath," he said. She nodded. "Yes." "For me." "Yes." Silence stretched between them like a chasm, until Gunnar slowly, painfully reached over and took her hand. "I didn't ask you to." "I know, but I'm not sorry you did." She exhaled, relief and exhaustion mingling behind her eyes. "They'll come for me," she said quietly. "The council. Maybe not now, but soon." "Then let them," he said. "I've got a few things to say to them myself." She smiled. "You're in no condition to storm a council chamber." "Good," he muttered. "Saves me time. They'll come here." He tried to sit up, winced, and immediately stopped. She caught him gently by the shoulder. "Gunnar." "Hmm? Don't scare me like that again." He looked at her for a long time, then nodded once. "Only if you promise not to save me like that again." She hesitated. "I can't promise that." He closed his eyes. "Didn't think so." They sat like that, fingers barely linked, staff of light dimmed between them, morning rising over the horizon. The storm was still coming. But for now, they had each other. The sun had risen higher now, spilling golden light through the warded windows of the workshop's medical wing. Gunnar hadn't spoken in several minutes, not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to break the moment. Aeliana sat beside him, head lowered slightly, her hand still in his. The staff of light leaned against her shoulder. Its surface glimmered faintly again, power trickling back slowly. Like her. She wasn't glowing. She wasn't armored. She was just herself. And that's what broke him. "You shouldn't have done it," he murmured again, more softly this time. "I know. You could have died." "I know that too." "The council will—" "Let them come," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I don't care anymore." She looked at him now, eyes locked. "I made my choice." Gunnar swallowed hard. Something in his chest pulled tight, and for once it wasn't the stitches. He stared at her, the woman who'd stood between realms, held the line for millennia, and broke everything just to drag him back from the edge. She'd shattered her own world for him, and he'd never said it. Not once, not really. His fingers tightened on hers, his voice was raw. "I love you." The words didn't echo. They didn't need to. They just landed, like thunder after a long silent storm. Aeliana blinked, not from surprise, but from the weight of finally hearing it aloud. Her lips parted. But for a moment she didn't speak. She just breathed, like she had been holding it in for years. Then she smiled. No walls, no shields, just truth. "I've always loved you." She leaned forward, not as a guardian, not as a soldier, just as Aeliana, and rested her forehead gently against his. They didn't need to say anything more, because after 20 seasons, one word was enough. Love. Chapter 30. Fire and Embers. They stayed like that, foreheads resting gently together, the soft hum of medical glyphs filling the space like a heartbeat just beneath the silence. Neither Gunnar nor Aeliana moved. They didn't need to. The moment had already changed everything. And then... A soft knock on the doorframe, not the loud kind, not the "I'm barging in" kind, just enough to announce. "Well, don't let me ruin the first honest moment between you two in 20 years. Rose." She stood just inside the threshold, arms folded across her chest, flame-red hair loose around her shoulders. Her coat fluttered slightly as if it carried a breeze of its own, and her eyes, always too perceptive, sparkled with a mix of amusement and genuine warmth. Aeliana straightened slightly, embarrassed but not pulling away. Gunnar groaned and dropped his head back on the pillow. Of course it's you. Who else? Rose shrugged. Darren's hip-deep in recon. Eli's too emotionally constipated for bedside manners, and Clara would have ordered you out of bed already. She took a few steps into the room, her boots making no sound on the polished floor. So I drew the short straw. You came to gloat, Gunnar muttered. No, Rose said, her tone softening. I came to check on my friend. A pause. Then she looked at Aeliana. And to say, I saw what you did. Aeliana met her gaze, unflinching. Rose gave her a small, knowing nod. For what it's worth, you have my respect. You always have. But now, you've earned something rarer. She paused, then smiled faintly. My understanding. The room went still again, but not awkward. Just waited, like a thread between warriors had just tied tighter. Thank you, Aeliana said softly. Rose waved it off. Don't get sappy. One of us has to keep her spine straight. She moved to Gunnar's bedside, hands on her hips. And you? Still not dead? Honestly, I had a whole monologue prepared. Sorry to disappoint, he said. You usually do. But then she leaned forward, just slightly, and rested 2 fingers gently against his temple. A rare gesture. Warm. Quiet. I'm glad you made it back, Wolf. Me too, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She pulled away and stepped back. Now, I'm going to go before you both cry and ruin my street cred. Too late, Gunnar said. Just by walking in here, you became part of the sentimental scene. Rose smirked. Then I might as well make it count. She stopped at the door. You love her. Yeah, he said without hesitation. Good. Took you long enough. Then she left, firelight trailing in her wake. Chapter 31. Echoes and Dust. The command tent was quiet except for the hum of tactical screens and the soft shuffle of boots on canvas. Elven and human officers stood at attention around the large central table, their eyes fixed on Clara. She stood at the head of the table, arms folded, face unreadable. 3 recon teams, 18 soldiers, hours in the field, and now they had returned, with nothing but dust and doubt. Lieutenant Bren, the human lead, stepped forward first. Target zone east of the castle, cleared. Found remnants of a safe house, burned runes, discarded ration packs, shattered mirror frame. No life signs. No bodies. How long since it was vacated? Clara asked. Best guess? Within the last 24 hours. Maybe less. She nodded once. Continue. Next, the elven lieutenant, Carol, stepped forward. His voice was calm but tense. We cleared 2 sites in the southern ridge. One was an illusion shell, old magic, cracked. The other was a shelter buried into the hillside, empty, beds made, supplies gone. Whoever was there left in a hurry, but with coordination. Scorched earth retreat? Clara asked. Possibly, but it felt planned, like someone gave the order to pull out clean. Nothing left behind except a single silver coin etched with a spider. That got a reaction from the room. Black Dawn, DeSera muttered from the edge of the table. Clara's eyes narrowed. And the 3rd team? A younger soldier stepped forward, human, nervous but focused. We found another safe house, Northeast Ridge. Same pattern. Ward symbols erased, fire pit doused, all tech removed, traces of ritual chalk and sacrificial tools but no blood. Just residue. Clara let the silence sit, then stepped forward. No bodies, no heat signatures, no signs of injured retreat. The soldier shook his head. None, ma'am. They either left fully operational, or they took their wounded with them. Meaning someone was well enough to lead them out, Clara said flatly. She looked around the table. No one spoke. Then she placed her palms on the edge of the map and leaned in. This wasn't a rout. It was an extraction. Carol nodded grimly. Coordinated. intentional. Clara's jaw clenched. They left before we could surround them. Either they had eyes on us, or someone tipped them. That left a chill in the room. If Syrien survived, she's somewhere else now, and the wolf with her. She straightened, voice steely. We didn't lose this round, but we didn't win it either. Then, softer, not yet. Chapter 32. The Alpha's Offer. The evening sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden beams through the ruined arches of the keep. Dust floated like memory through the air, soft, glowing, and fading. Clara stood in the open courtyard, hands behind her back, posture relaxed but composed. Her armour bore the marks of the day's work, and the wind teased strands of her tied-back hair. Across from her, the three sisters approached. Lysandra in front, her talisman now hanging once again from her neck. She moved with grace and tension, the weight of leadership still settling on her shoulders. Valara and Nezra flanked her, their own expressions guarded but open. They had seen what the pack could do. They had seen what it meant to stand with, not against, the balance. You asked for a meeting, Lysandra said. I assumed it wasn't to gloat. Clara smiled faintly. We're not the gloating type. That's more Darren's department. That earned a small twitch of amusement from Valara. Clara took a step forward. We're pulling our main forces out at dawn. The castle is yours again. No conditions. You defended it. You bled for it. You've earned that right. Nezra blinked. And the price? No price. Clara paused. But an offer. Lysandra arched a brow. Clara continued. If you want it, I'll leave behind a detachment. Small. Mixed team. Humans and elves. Not to take command. Not to hold your hand. Just to train. To share tactics. To build trust. And if we say no? Lysandra asked. Then we shake hands and part ways. No hard feelings. Valara stepped forward now. Why offer this? Clara looked her in the eye. Because the war isn't over. Syrien's still out there. The wolf too. And whatever's coming next, it's going to hit all of us. I'd rather have sisters at my side than more corpses underfoot. Silence stretched between them. Then Lysandra slowly nodded. We accept. Nezra looked surprised. Even Valara blinked. Lysandra's voice was steady. Not because we need help, but because we're tired of surviving alone. Clara extended her hand. Lysandra took it. Firm grip, no illusions, just respect. Then we'll leave the best, Clara said. They'll answer to you, and they'll stand by you. A moment passed, then Clara turned to go. For what it's worth, Lysandra called out behind her, you wear the alpha mantle well. Clara didn't stop, didn't look back. She just replied calm and certain, I know. And with that, the female alpha of the pack walked away, shoulders squared, dusk at her back, and the weight of leadership fully settled across her spine. Chapter 33. 3 Days of Peace. The sun was high outside, but the world inside the workshop's private quarters was slow and soft, thick with comfort and the quiet kind of exhaustion that only followed survival. Gunner's room was bigger than most. Reinforced walls, wide windows overlooking the mountains, and enough space for more than just a recovery bed. At the centre of it all was Gunner, reclined against a mess of pillows and blankets, one arm wrapped lazily around Beta, who had refused to leave his side since the moment she arrived. Her head rested across his legs while Alpha, healed but still groggy, was curled at the foot of the bed, his tail twitching softly in sleep. On the opposite side of the room, Aeliana sat cross-legged in an oversized chair, legs tucked beneath her, a mug of tea in hand. Her skin still looked pale, her energy not fully restored. But she was smiling, genuine, present. Clara sat at the edge of the bed, boots off, posture relaxed for the first time in weeks. Darren leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, telling a completely untrue story about how he once disarmed a dark priest with only a spoon and a bad attitude. Eli, curled in a deep chair by the window, snorted into her coffee. "That story has changed 3 times since breakfast," she said dryly. "Yeah, but the spoons remained consistent. That's narrative integrity," Darren fired back. "The only thing consistent about you is the chaos," Clara muttered, smirking. "And the charm," he added, flashing a grin. Aeliana raised her mug. "He's right. You're nothing, if not predictably, unpredictable." Gunnar grunted. "He's also the reason we had to replace the east wall of the barracks last year." Darren pointed a lazy finger in protest. "Still not proven. I maintain that was an alchemical misfire, and I was an innocent bystander." "You were holding the detonator," Eli said flatly. "Semantics." They all laughed. Even Alpha's ear twitched. The warmth in the room was tangible, earned. They weren't just a team. They were a pack. And for a while it felt like time had stopped, until the door opened, and Maelorion stepped inside. The shift was instant, not tense but reverent, present. He was still in council robes, dark green with silver thread, clean and ceremonial, but his expression was calm, even gentle, as he stepped in and took in the scene. "I see I've arrived just in time to ruin the mood," he said softly. Gunnar raised a brow. "We were doing fine without your politics, old man." Maelorion chuckled and nodded toward Aeliana. "It's good to see you up." "It's good to be up," she said, setting her mug aside. "Thank you for everything." He moved closer, resting a hand briefly on her shoulder with a smile, then turned serious. "I'm here as your friend, but also as a messenger." Everyone straightened slightly. Maelorion met Aeliana's gaze. "In 3 days you are to appear before the full Guardian Council in Alfheim." A beat passed. It landed like a dull thud in the center of the room. No outbursts, no arguments, just the weight of inevitability. Aeliana nodded slowly, then looked at her tea as if it could offer answers. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. 3 days, huh?" Maelorion arched a brow. "Yes." She looked around at the others, Darren rolling his eyes dramatically, Eli frowning into her cup, Clara already calculating backup contingencies, and Gunnar watching her with that unreadable softness he reserved for only her. "Then I say we enjoy them." A pause. "We've earned it." Darren clapped his hands. "Now that's the spirit. I call dibs on cooking tonight." Eli groaned. "We're all going to die." "But with flavour," he grinned. Clara smiled. Even Maelorion cracked a hint of one. And for a moment, just one, they let themselves believe the storm really had passed. If only for 3 more days. Epilogue. What comes after? The workshop, midnight. The soft hum of enchantment coils buzzed faintly under the warm glow of overhead lights. Runes shimmered across the reinforced walls of Eli's workroom, silent guardians against the chaos of the world outside. On the main bench, Starbreaker lay in pieces. The once mighty weapon, shattered during the assault, was now little more than fragments of power-forged steel and scorched enchantment cores. But to Eli, it was a puzzle worth solving. Blueprints were spread across the table, hand-sketched, layered with notes and ideas. She held a pencil between her lips and leaned in, scribbling a fresh rune cluster onto the design labelled Starbreaker 2.0. More focused, more stable, more devastating, and this time it would survive. She paused, hand hovering over the schematic, then gently laid the original hilt at the top of the blueprint like a crown. "Let's see what you want to become," she whispered. Garage Bay, dawn. The smell of motor oil and ozone filled the massive lower bay of the workshop, where sparks flew from a welding torch as Darren crouched beneath a stripped-down frame. Caleb stood nearby, sleeves rolled up, arc wrench in hand as he tightened a suspension strut. "You know," Caleb said, glancing over, "most people would retire a vehicle after it explodes." Yeah, well, Darren muttered. Most people aren't emotionally attached to military-grade badasses with flamethrowers. A pause. You're talking about the Wolfmobile or Gunner? Caleb deadpanned. Yes, Darren grinned. They both chuckled. A new plaque had already been riveted to the side of the frame, painted in bold block letters, Wolfmobile 2, Bite Harder. Life wasn't normal, but it was getting there. The river. Afternoon. The river that curved behind the workshop ran slow and cold, its waters reflecting the late-day sun in ripples of silver and fire. Gunnar and Aeliana walked its edge in silence, boots crunching against smooth stones, the wind tugging softly at their clothes. They didn't speak much, they didn't need to. Every step was its own conversation. He watched her from the corner of his eye, the way she looked at the trees, the river, the sky, like she was trying to memorize everything, just in case the council took it all away. She didn't notice when he slowed, didn't notice when he stopped, not until she turned back and saw him drop to one knee, her breath caught. No words, not yet. Just him, looking up at her, and in the hush of the river's song,